Good afternoon, and welcome everyone to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Dean and Craig. Good afternoon to you, Craig.
Good afternoon, Dean. Number 19 today,
Nu-
mate.
Number
They are starting to
19.
build up.
And speaking of numbers, I would also like to give you a big happy birthday shout out for everyone listening. Today is Craig's birthday, and he is the second youngest host of Uncommon Sense. So happy birthday to you, Craig. I hope
Thank
you
you, Dean.
have a lovely day beyond
I,
working on your birthday.
Craig, I could be out for a birthday lunch, but you know what? I chose Uncommon Sense. Nowhere else I'd
Some
rather
would
be.
some would question right now whether we've pre-recorded this, but we definitely haven't. Craig is working on his birthday, so let's jump straight in. Craig, we've been talking of late about learning from other professionals first and foremost, about how we can look at other professionals outside of financial planning to get some ideas and inspiration on how we can run our businesses better. And so I wanted to actually interview you today in the context of you being another professional and working for what I call a large corporate, to see what we can learn from large corporates in terms of what's good, what's shitty, what's the same between contrasting small business and large business. And so probably the first thing, just to open it up for you, is just explaining the businesses and how they're all sort of interconnected and why they came about in three parts.
Yeah, sure, mate. Thank you. Now, the first point I want to pick up on here is you've put me in the large corporate bucket, which that's okay, Dean. I'm willing to take your where you've popped us in a bucket, but I think what's making us truly successful as a business, and I'm going to talk, Dean, from a diverger perspective for most of today,
Yeah.
because I think that's a really important way to describe it and an important message to help shape how we're sort of driving success. And the first core real piece of this is that, yes, let's call it large corporate bench strength, but with a small business mindset.
Mm.
Because small business mindset in this, Dean, is the really, really critical part. What that means is, grit without ego. So it's not actually about us. It's about our advisors and the accountants and the clients and everyone that partner with us. It means that there's no bureaucracy running through the firm which stops major decisions happening. It means that in me running my part of the business, I don't have to ask permission for things. I can go and do it, and I can execute, and I can start and stop stuff whenever I feel like it, as long as I'm contributing and trying to achieve our goals. And so I think that the real driver of success, and to be open, this is from the chairman down. The
Mm.
chairman has openly said to all the exec team through the business that regardless of the scale and bench strength and size that we build, you must run this business with a small business mindset. And I think we're doing that, and we're holding each other accountable to that. And that's really starting to get some great momentum for us, because it means we get stuff done.
Mm.
Um, Stuff
And
being
it's
a
a
nice word. Normally we say get shit done internally, right? You just
yes,
have to get shit
we
done.
do say that. But it's interesting, Craig, because on the flip side, you're actually you represent shareholders, and you're spending,
Yes.
for want of a better word, other people's money in terms of going down these rabbit holes or getting distracted with different projects. So how do you actually hold yourself accountable to go, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole, but I've got to go down it in a particular way so I don't waste other people's money and waste your time? Because I think that's a little bit of a curse of an entrepreneur. And I want to know whether a corporate does it any differently because of checks and balances.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, right? We've got shareholder responsibility, and that we need to drive outcomes, for the shareholders of Diverger. Um, but what that means we've done, though, Dean, is we've put a really great infrastructure and framework in place, in terms of setting our goals, knowing what it is that we want Diverger to be, knowing what each brand and what lever they have to pull through the business, through the day-to-day activities, and through the things we do to actually get there. And we have an infrastructure and a framework that everyone follows.
Mm.
That starts at the overarching Diverger level, and then comes down to each business. And there's plans in there, and we work together as a team to say, these are the rocks that Paradigm's going to achieve this month. These are the rocks that GPS is going to get this month. And then what that means overarching for our brand and where we get it to. So I'm mumbling around and and not explaining it very well, but we do have a strong framework in place that is followed by every leader and therefore their team through the business, that keeps us coherent,
Yep.
keeps us focused, and keeps us on task in terms of what we actually want to achieve.
Excellent. Excellent. So I suppose the next thing to think about, in contrasting small business and a
Yep.
corporate, we'll drop the word large in this context at the moment. Hello to Louise, and she's put two of your Paradigm values
Personalities. Yeah.
up on the chat. So if anyone else is listening and knows the rest of the Paradigm values, please stick them in the chat. It'll be a test and a prize, obviously, for anyone that gets it.
Yep.
But Craig, tell us about the business planning process of what small businesses might do compared to what you do. What's the same, what's better, and what's worse?
Yeah, so I think let's start with the same, right? It's about going, having that core focus. What is our passion? What's our niche? And who's our target market? And if you know those things, then that helps you, pivot off to the other areas that you need to. So, for example, like Diverge's passion is creating positive change,
Mm,
right? And if you link that up, that doesn't say necessarily down one path or who, with, or how. It's to create positive change because that's what people need. Now, our niche, though, is partnering with advice and accounting firms for growth.
yep.
And then our target market then from that becomes small to mid-tier advice and accounting firms in Australia that have growth mindset and are willing to partner with someone for services. And so you've got to build that part of the process, Dean. And I think whether you're, the fish and chip shop on the corner, or whether you're a massive corporate, you have to have that core focus and those three things really clear
Mm.
so that you can drive and be successful at what you do. So I think everyone should have that core focus, regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's often it's the role of the CEO for what of lots of other things that they might do. But if you read the ton of business books about things that the CEOs do well, and part of what they do is communicating those three things, Craig, about
Yes.
what our overall vision is, who are our customers, why are we serving them, how are we serving them to keep moving forward. And it's almost reiterating that into the brains of the entire organization. And that takes time to communicate those messages. You can't just put it up on a billboard and hope your team picks it up. And that's really relevant for whether it's a large company or a business with 4 or 5 people. Um, Understanding where you're going in a business of 4 and taking your staff on a journey is really, really valuable. We know in our first financial planning business, Craig, the best thing that we ever did was our one staff member that we had at the time. We actually took her through the strategic plan
Mm.
that we had at that particular point in time. It was better than a napkin, but not as good as what we do now. But we took Stella through that particular process and she got it. And what I mean by got it is she knew what our roles needed to be in the business going forward. And she knew what her role was in the business going forward, and how she took that knowledge into execution is that the next day in the office, she took work off Paul and said, "Stop doing that. I will do that. Go out and get another client." And
Yeah.
Stella's a shareholder in our business now and has worked for us for 12 years so far. But the most important thing is she got where she fit at that point in time, but also where the business needed to go and who needed to take particular steps as a result of that.
Yeah, mate. And I think you've hit a really interesting point there, Dean. And that is, you don't just have a core focus for the core focus's sake.
Mm,
And I know lots of businesses will go and write, this is our core focus, and not actually use it for what its intended purpose is. So if you ask me what people should start doing, it's yes, build your core focus, but then actually use it for its intended purpose, which is actually every time I think of an idea, every time I need to make a decision, every time I think about something that I'm going to do within my business, does it relate back to that core focus?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, well, maybe it's not the best idea, and maybe I
Mm,
need to think of something else. So it's really there as a decision making tool,
yep.
and that's how you can get shit done. Because if you know that and you relate your decisions and the things that you're going to execute on back to that,
yep.
you can decide, commit, go, or not
Mm.
do it at all.
So tell us about the worst things then. Like what is actually some of the things, and you might have to recall to your BT days or something like that in terms of a larger corporate as compared to where you are now. But what are some of the handbrakes that corporate put on people that potentially we can learn from to make sure
Yep.
that we don't do it to ourselves, because we need to be
Yep.
much more nimbler in small business. So what can we learn in avoiding?
Yeah. So let me go back to my previous lives, because I used to write a list down of these are the things I would never do given the opportunity to run a small business with no bureaucracy. So I'll go back to
Good.
those times for us. So number one is actually just telling people to do stuff or giving people a number, or you have to get this or you have to do that with no explanation. E.g., go and wipe out a third of your advisors that you currently partner with because you need to reduce your advisor numbers. Full stop. Well, what's the
Mm,
explanation? Well, if you looked into the tea leaves, it's we're going to close the licensee down in 2.5 years, and we want it to be as easy as possible.
yeah.
So the point of that is actually not giving people the information to be empowered to understand the decision. That's a
Mm,
real failure
yeah.
because you will not get people involved, and you won't keep them on the
Well,
on the
that's the foot
on the bus.
soldier, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
that's just I've got a command, I'll execute it with no context as to why I'm executing that. So yeah,
yeah,
I can completely appreciate that context in so many different scenarios is literally the best thing that I can teach. Is that the more we're able to set up anyone, clients, your partner, and any
yep.
conversation you're about to have, if you can share the context before the content, it's incredibly valuable for all decision making and all delegation of tasks.
It is. The next one, Dean, is don't invest in a project that's actually not going to go anywhere.
Mm,
The amount of times I could count in previous lives where, oh, we're going to launch this and it never gets launched and it gets a whole heap of money invested in it and then it never actually happens. Oh, we're going to do that and then it never actually happens. It's so frustrating. Like, talk about over promising and under delivering. That's what
mm,
they tend to do a lot. And yet they take people on this journey and they never actually get them to the end.
yeah.
And that is incredibly frustrating. So don't do that. Um,
Yeah, almost do that. I think we have in the client service context, you want to under promise and over deliver. But yeah, it's always a challenge that corporates have got big plans, and then it can happen that somewhere else in the business something goes wrong, and then their
yep.
resources are moved or the strategy gets changed really quickly.
Yeah, and probably just the third one that used to really bug me was meetings for meetings' sake.
Mm, yeah,
And lots of people in the meetings with lots of different opinions and nothing actually ever getting done other than going around in circles and people feeling like they've had a fulfilling day at work because they've attended 7 or 8 meetings and they go home and go, yeah, that was a great day. They've
yeah.
actually got nothing done.
Mm, mm,
And this is why, and this idea comes from Apple, and what Steve Jobs used to do, and that is small groups of smart people. You
yeah,
put small groups of smart people in a room and make sure that everyone is in there for that purpose and no one's in there for just the sake of it, and then you get shit done. And so, yeah, don't have meetings for meetings' sake, and don't have lots of people in the room because you won't get
yeah.
anything done.
Absolutely. One of my best mate will not attend a meeting without an agenda. He just declines
Yep.
the meeting straight away, and often he just declines meetings because it doesn't fit in his diary. He declines meetings because the person it should just be a conversation. It's like, hey, just give me a call or walk past my desk. I think not Amazon. Yeah, I think Amazon makes is focused on these strategy papers that before every meeting, a paper has to be produced, and read. And if it's not read, you spend the first part of the meeting reading it before you actually get in and make some decisions. So yeah, there's a good learning there, Craig, of not overdoing meetings. In small business, we have to avoid it as well because it's a drain of time. But yeah, making those meetings action orientated, capturing the action items and to dos, and actually getting to, I talk about fast decision making, is we just don't want to talk about this forever. I don't want to be talking
Yes.
about this in 3 months' time, Craig. I want to be able to set the right context, define the problem appropriately, but then get to a decision. And if we can't decide today, we're going to defer the whole conversation till our next quarterly meeting. But I don't want to keep bringing this up every week and politicking and then never get it solved. So it's either
No.
decide today or kick it down the can properly down the road to deal with it at a later date.
Yep.
Cool. The next thing, Craig, just tell us a little bit about these three uniques. Like, I'm really happy that as a business, you actually use a very similar coaching and strategy operating system for your business that we do in small business. So there's a very little difference, which is amazing in terms of that, in terms of business strategy. Tell us about the three uniques that you've built for Diverger and how we can really apply those and think about them in the small business as well.
Yeah, and mate, just a little bit on the framework and the program. Like, what's really important for us is, and I've always carried this: never make someone else do something. Makes a strong word, but never, involve someone else in doing something that you would never ever do yourself. And therefore, using this framework is something that you won't say, but through your coaching work and through the programs we're running together, this is the framework we're actually using with advice businesses. So I know it works because we have evidence points of that, but we actually use it for ourselves. So, we're not just, oh, you should do this because it's great. We're doing it because we know it works. And one of the great things that this program asks you to do is come up with three uniques, as you just said. But it's important to understand that on their own, these uniques might not be so unique to another person in the market or another business in the market that you're competing with or whatever. But the goal is that the three uniques together make you a unique business. And so, from a Diverger perspective on the wealth side, we're really, really, really proud of the three that we've got. And, every time we talk to them, it's kind of, without being corny, it's kind of a goosebump moment because you actually go, that's actually really what we do. And that's what we're about.
Come on, tell us, Craig.
Okay, tell
Come
us.
on.
I was just building the suspense for you, Dean.
I'm on the edge of our seat.
So
I am, let alone our listeners.
So the first one is a win-win mentality. And that is that we genuinely want, and I am looking over here because I've got them here, because when I go for these, Dean, I get excited and sometimes I miss stuff. So I've got them on my other screen because I want to get it right for you.
It's
but,
okay.
We genuinely want our clients to succeed, and we partner with them on a journey. And win-win removes this whole master-servant mentality that, let's be honest, used to exist in the market between the licensee and the advisor market and that type of. It removes all of that. So the people we work with, the advisors we work with, the people right through their businesses, they know we're all on this win-win together. So the evidence points to that is that we actually have a collective of brands covering individual businesses, life stages, needs, and goals. But not only a collective of brands, right, but a collective of services that are suitable for businesses at different life stages that Diverger can offer as a wider group to practices when they need it. So yes, they might be part of a certain tribe because that's where they are and that's what they believe in. But that doesn't mean you can't offer other services through that life stage journey. And it's all about win-win. The other part, we get practice feedback in policy development. So if we're writing policies, we send it out to our practices for review. We ask them to contribute and get feedback back. And right now we're moving into transitional equity opportunities where we've got some of our firms wanting us to invest in them. wanting us to help them grow, wanting us to bring some capability and skill set that they may not have to help them grow, wanting us to help them with succession plan,
Mm.
and back younger advisors and that kind of thing and help. So,
Which is all win-win.
which is all win-win.
Tell
That's
us
your
the
nice way of
second
saying
one,
move on.
Craig.
The second one is that we're change leaders. And Louise put hashtag fearless there for us. If you've seen Gus Balboten speak, who was one of the founders of Lonely Planet,
Yep.
he says, "What if you were scared of nothing? What would you actually do?" And so this is what relates to change leaders as our second unique. We're a true service business. Our product is our service, right? We don't have anything else to prop us up but our service. We're trying to solve roadblocks in advice, so that we can, look at what's out there, look at what the problem is, and actually challenge the status quo on that. And to sit there and go, if we were scared of nothing, we'd be willing to make changes, and we are.
Mm.
So therefore, the evidence points to that, Dean, is we've done an outsource, we've done a joint venture with an outsourcing company for back office support services to our clients. The change leaders part, as I said earlier, allows us to execute and make calls. And, we're building like a professional year program that doesn't only just make sure that PY candidates are following the legalities of things, but it's investing in their futures and the things they actually need to do to operate in a business and be a human being. And the third one, mate, is as simple as we get advice.
Yeah.
Right. We don't just understand the advice market, but our focus extends to holding a deep understanding of advice businesses and their clients and knowing what they really want. So, we've got investment capability that can back that up. There's programs called Accelerate, which is something you and I are involved in together, which, PS, we might announce some more exciting stuff later. But, we've got the game of money, like GPS has a Young Guns program to invest in advisors just starting out or new businesses just starting out. You don't have to be young to be a young gun. You could just be starting a business and want that trajectory and that help. We've got broad, wide, and deep expertise right across the business with the people that work in it. And we've got market leading net promoter scores, which show that we do get it. Our net promoter scores are over 60. And, the latest one we've just done is indicating that way as well. So they're our three uniques. Win-win, we're change leaders, and we get advice.
Yep.
And so it's about combining them, Dean. Sorry, mate. It's just about combining them to help advice businesses. So again, it's not about us, grit without ego. It's about them. And so how do we use those three uniques to simply help advice businesses?
Brilliant. And the biggest lesson that we have whenever we reflect on these and from the process perspective and using these is that we love these to fit into everything that we do outside of the corporate as well. So every time we
Yes.
communicate with a client, if you can think about, and if you're doing your own uniques for your own business, the three things that make you, the sum of these three parts make you unique, is that then it becomes that the answer to the question about, well, why should I work with you, Craig, instead of blah? Whether it's a financial planning, any other professional service, or any other service or business, like why should I get my house painted by you, Craig?
Yep.
If you have three uniques, which is the answer to the question about why should I choose you over someone else, it's a really powerful message. And it's powerful because frankly, like you live your heart on your sleeve. Like it's an honest, true answer of what you're living, that drives not only the decision to engage with that business today, but engage with that business on an ongoing basis. And we all love to have ongoing clients and relationships. That's part of what we do. And to be able to leverage these over time is really important.
Who's been doing their homework online?
Louise is winning the prize, Craig.
She's winning the
if you can
prize.
organise Louise's prize, whatever that may be. But thank you, Louise, for going onto the Paragem website, I presume.
Probably the LinkedIn page, I'd say she's found those.
Yes, picking those up. But that's really important to live our values, and we, like the three uniques, the values that all these companies go through the exercise of their values, and they ask their staff to live their values. But living the values for us, Craig, is exactly what's on the screen right now, is fundamentally living them with your clients, whoever your client might be, all of the time. And so that's a great way of leveraging all this work that we might do in these corporate workshops about what our values are and things like that. It's no point having them if we don't create a communication strategy around them to share them with our customers.
Yeah. And the way I look at all of this, like in terms of our plan, I mean, licensees can be boring, right? But advice businesses aren't. And so you've got to focus on the advice business and work out what they need and turn yourself into a true service company. Now, I see this get thrown out there all the time, right? There's articles of, the licensee and the way it operates today won't ever be sustainable. Da 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 da. And you know what? It's so easy to say it,
Mm.
but it's bloody hard to do it. And I feel that with that framework we've created, with knowing what our values are, our core focus is, and our three uniques, we are well on the way to actually doing it. And so
Mm.
you won't hear us out there saying that often. But I think licensees are boring, and I run one. But I actually, they could be boring. And so
Yeah.
you need to look at what it is that advice businesses need, and not try and do half-ass services that your licensee is just giving you. Right?
Mm.
That's not what this is about. If you want to be a true service company like the trajectory we're on with that shift, it's about creating and finding services that people will be willing to pay for, that produce an economic benefit for everyone, us included.
Yep.
Win-win,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? And so that's the shift you've got to make in your mind. And I think it's a hard shift for our industry to kind of take and accept. Easy to say, hard to do. But I'm
Yeah,
really proud that
absolutely.
we're really implementing and executing on that.
And the analogy that I have that I talk about in advice firms, Craig, is that I challenge everyone and say that we're a customer service business that happens to deliver financial advice.
Yep.
And it's a simple sentence, but it's a little bit of a mind shift change, which actually says that what is the first thing that we do is customer service, and the second thing we do is we deliver, you know, good or best interest financial advice. Pardon the pun. But you're absolutely right as well. Is that your focus is your service, and client service comes with service. Is we're building this. You're building this platform of services that people can choose from a menu, and take those forward, and each individual thing has to be almost has to stand alone on the menu.
Yes. Yep. No, no, absolutely correct, mate. It's truly about making, that collective of leading programs, and leading brands to be able to give your clients what it is that they need.
Yep.
And as a true service company, like as I said at the beginning, our product is our service. And so if you don't deliver on that, people will not buy your service.
Mm.
And if people do not buy our service, we fail. And so, we have to be 100% on it every single time to make sure that what we're delivering is what our clients actually need, and to find more stuff to give them, to
Yep.
help them, to,
Yep.
to deliver to them. And that's where you
Absolutely.
got to listen, and you got to learn, and you got to adapt. And as per one of my other LinkedIn posts, where you have to, pivot or persevere, not preserve. But that's a really important thing. Is I always say too, from a small business perspective, it's important to stop something that's not working as quick as you started it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
try not,
often
yeah,
we hold on to ideas too long.
correct.
And even and that's probably the curse of a small business and a large business, is that sometimes when you're in your own business, you can't see the higher picture of everything that's going on, or you can't see what your competitors might be doing. So we get very insulated on our own, and so
Yep.
yes, stopping things is really important. So
But this then
hey,
leads to
yep,
one last point, which
you
is
can have
really
one last point,
one
Craig.
last point. You can see I'm very passionate about this topic, but it's critical to have someone in your corner that's not necessarily in your business, that you can ask things, that you can test things with, and that is willing to hold you accountable
Mm,
on stuff. You've got to have that person in your corner, and you got to be able to drop the ego and actually listen to them.
yep, and tell
That's
them the
really
truth.
critical. Yeah, Yep.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's the power of having someone else looking at the same problem, but looking at the problem from a different perspective. Definitely
Correct.
helps. So that's it, Craig, for the birthday edition
There we
of
go.
Uncommon Sense. So that's your birthday present. You had the soapbox today
I got
for
the soapbox. Thank you. I appreciate
for
it.
telling your story, but continuing the theme as we are doing of learning from other professionals is that we're just trying to bring this idea to the community of financial advisors, how there's a variety of different ways out there that people can run their businesses, run their client service, run their advice. And if we can be inspired and learn from other professionals, I think it's going to give us a step up in how we move the industry from where we are today to a larger, more professional industry over time. So that's our mission of bringing some things to you as well. So, and Louise has said happy birthday
Thank you, Louise.
on LinkedIn. So thanks very much, Louise. You've been the most active person on LinkedIn for us today. So thank you for that. It's always appreciated when people drop in the comments. So that's it for us for today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time with a special guest.
Another special guest. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.